Before we start today, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever looked at your own family and realized you weren't a daughter or a son to them? You were just a resource, a safety net for the person they actually loved. Today's story is personal. It's about a girl who is called the practice child, the one her parents used to learn all their mistakes on so they could be perfect for their masterpiece son, Ethan. But what happens when the practice child stops practicing forgiveness and starts practicing math? Because revenge, my friends, is a cold, calculated ledger, and today, the debt is coming due. I still remember the smell of that kitchen. It always smelled like expensive roast coffee and the lavender detergent my mother used on Ethan's sports jerseys. And it never smelled like my work uniform. That greasy, stale scent of the diner where I spent 40 hours a week while taking 18 credits at the community college. I was 19. I had $14,200 in a savings account. I knew the number by heart. It was my ticket out. It was 3 years of double shifts, missed birthdays, and worn-out shoes. It was my junior and senior year at the state university. Take a moment to imagine that. You're 19, you've sacrificed everything, and you think you're finally safe. You think the door to your future is finally unlocked. I walked into the kitchen that Tuesday night, ready to tell my parents I'd been accepted into the honors program. But the air was different. The house felt celebratory. There was a bottle of champagne on the table. My brother, Ethan, the golden child, the boy who could trip over his own feet and be congratulated for testing the floor's durability, was beaming. My mother was rubbing his shoulders like he'd just won an Olympic gold medal. My father was holding a printout. "Maya, sit down," my mother chirped. Her voice had that specific Ethan is happy lilt. "We have the most incredible news. Ethan is starting a business, a tech startup." I felt a small prickle of unease. Ethan's last business was a car detailing service that lasted 3 days and cost my parents $2,000 in ruined upholstery. "That's great," I said, my voice cautious. "What kind of tech?" "Crypto, Maya," Ethan shouted, leaning back in his chair. "It's a decentralized exchange platform. It's the future. I just needed the seed capital to get the developers on board." I looked at my father. "Seed capital?" "Dad, you said things were tight since the layoff." My father didn't look at me. He looked at the champagne. "They were, Maya, but we realized we had a stagnant asset, an account that wasn't doing anyone any good just sitting there." The room went cold. The sound of the refrigerator humming suddenly felt like a roar in my ears. "What account, Dad?" "The education fund," he said, his voice hardening into that "don't challenge me" tone he used whenever he knew he was doing something wrong. "We've decided to put your college savings into Ethan's startup as a family investment." I didn't scream. I couldn't. I felt like the air had been turned into lead. "That's my money," I whispered. "I worked for that. I worked the graveyard shifts. I paid the taxes on that. We provided the roof over your head while you earned it," my mother snapped, her perfect mask slipping. "Don't be selfish, Maya. You're the practice child. You've always been sturdy. You've always figured it out." Ethan has a vision. He's a dreamer. He needs a platform. You'll just go to school, get a job, and be fine. But this could change our lives. Did you catch that? The practice child. Like I was a rough draft they were okay with throwing in the trash. Like my sweat and my exhaustion were just fuel for Ethan's vision. "I won't be fine," I said, my voice shaking. I won't have a degree. I'll be a waitress for the rest of my life. Ethan laughed then, a short, sharp sound. God, Maya, always so dramatic. Once I'm a millionaire, I'll buy you a whole restaurant. Just think of this as a loan to the family. A loan? I asked, looking him dead in the eye. When do I get it back? When I'm ready, he said, turning back to his phone. That was the night the Maya they knew died. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I realized that night that I was living behind enemy lines. I went to my room, packed one suitcase, and waited until they were asleep. I didn't leave a note. I didn't leave a footprint. I just left. The next 10 years were a blur of concrete and numbers. If my parents thought I was sturdy, I decided to become made of titanium. I didn't go to the state university. I joined a junior real estate firm as an assistant. I worked 80 hours a week. I slept on a mattress I found on a sidewalk for 6 months. I learned the language of the wealthy. Not the fake wealth of Ethan's dreams, but the old money language of contracts, deeds, and foreclosures. I changed my last name. Not legally. At first, but to everyone I met. I was Maya Vance. Maya, the closer. Maya, the woman who could find a flaw in a 300-page commercial lease in 10 minutes. I never called home. They never called me. I heard through the grapevine of distant cousins that Ethan's crypto exchange had lasted 6 months before he pivoted to a high-end streetwear line. Then a luxury travel agency. Each time my parents dipped into their home equity to fund the masterpiece. By year 8, I was a senior partner at Vance & Associates. I lived in a penthouse that overlooked the city. I wore suits that cost more than my father's car. And every morning, I checked a very specific watch list on my computer. I wasn't watching the stock market. I was watching the deed to a small colonial-style house on 42nd Oak Street. My childhood home. In early 2026. And the red flag finally popped up. Status: pre-foreclosure. Owner: Robert and Elena. Primary debt: secondary mortgage, HELOC, and 3 unpaid property tax liens. This is the moment. The debt Ethan promised to pay back? It had grown, and it had finally swallowed the house whole. My parents were about to be homeless because they gambled on a dreamer who never woke up. I sat in my leather chair, the city lights reflecting in my glass of scotch, and I felt nothing. No pity, no rage, just the cold satisfaction of a math problem finally reaching its solution. I picked up my phone and called my head of legal. Sarah, I need you to form a new LLC. Keep it deep layer. Use the British Virgin Islands for the parent company. Name the entity Second Chance Capital. Second Chance? Sarah asked. Sounds charitable, Maya. Shin, that's not like you. I smiled, and for the first time in a decade, it reached my eyes. Oh, it's not charity, Sarah. It's an acquisition. Most people, when they want revenge, they throw a brick through a window or send a nasty email. But Maya? Maya knew that the most painful way to break someone isn't with a fist, it's with a pen. To the world, she was a success. To her family, she was a ghost. But to the bank that owned the mortgage on 42nd Oak Street, she was about to become the boss. I sat in my office at Vance & Associates, watching the rain streak against the floor-to-ceiling glass. On my desk was the file for Second Chance Capital. It looked like a standard relief fund. It had a professional website, a soft blue logo, and a mission statement about empowering families in financial distress. It was a beautiful lie, Underneath the surface, the contract trap was a masterpiece of legal cruelty. I had my lawyers draft a distressed asset recovery loan. It looked like a miracle. Low interest, no payments for the first 6 months. But here was the poison pill. Deep in the fine print, Section 14, Paragraph C, was a clause called absolute transfer of title. It stated that if the borrower failed to provide a certified financial update or missed a single payment after the grace period, the property wouldn't just go into foreclosure. It would instantly and irrevocably transfer to the holding company. No court, no 90-day warning, just gone. I knew Ethan. I knew he'd see the no payments for 6 months and think he'd won the lottery. He wouldn't read Section 14. Dreamers never read the fine print. I didn't call my parents. I called Ethan. I used a burner phone and an executive assistant voice. Mr. Darrell? I'm calling from Second Chance Capital. We've been reviewing local property debts, and we think your family home is a candidate for our Legacy Preservation Program. We'd like to meet with the family representative. Ethan, predictably, jumped at it. He probably thought he was finally getting the big break he deserved. We met at a high-end coffee shop downtown, the kind where a latte costs $12 and the chairs are made of reclaimed oak. I arrived early. I sat in the back corner wearing a charcoal blazer, dark sunglasses, and a silk scarf that partially obscured my face. To anyone else, I looked like a busy executive. To Ethan, well, Ethan hadn't looked at me in a decade. He wouldn't recognize me unless I wanted him to. When he walked in, I almost laughed. He was 30 years old, but still looked like he was playing dress-up. And he was wearing a designer suit that was clearly a knockoff, and he kept checking his fake gold watch. He looked tired. The golden child was tarnishing. I didn't speak. I sent my junior associate, Marcus, to handle the face-to-face. I sat 3 tables away, listening through a hidden earbud. Mr. Darrell, Marcus said, sliding the folder across the table. We know about the pre-foreclosure. We know about the $85,000 in secondary debt. Second Chance Capital is willing to clear all of it. We'll pay the bank tomorrow. Ethan's eyes practically turned into dollar signs. And the catch? There's always a catch. No catch. Marcus lied smoothly. We just want a 2% stake in the future appreciation of the home and a small monthly service fee starting in 6 months. And it's a social impact loan. Social impact. It's the perfect phrase to use on a narcissist. It makes them feel like they aren't being bailed out. They're being invested in. I'll need to run this by my parents, Ethan said, trying to sound like a serious businessman. Of course, Marcus replied, but the bank's auction is in 4 days. We need a signature by Friday, or the house goes to the highest bidder. Ethan didn't even wait for Friday. He signed the intent to borrow right there, in the middle of the coffee shop. He didn't even look at the absolute transfer clause. He was too busy telling Marcus about his new venture, a luxury car rental service that just needed a little more capital. I watched from behind my sunglasses as he walked out, strutting like he'd just saved the world. He had no idea he'd just handed me the keys to his life. I paid the debt the next morning. $114,000. To my parents, a miracle had occurred. An anonymous charity had saved their home. They probably cried. They probably took Ethan out to a celebratory dinner with the money they no longer had to give the bank. I didn't care. I was playing the long game. Every month, I received an automated report from the Second Chance portal. Month 1. No contact from borrower. Month 2. Borrower attempted to apply for a credit card using the home as collateral, blocked by Arlene. Month 3. Ethan Durrell posted photos on Instagram of a business trip to Vegas. I knew exactly what was happening. He was spending the money he should have been saving for the first payment. He thought he was the man again. He thought the practice child was somewhere out there struggling while he was back on top. This is the danger of the golden child syndrome. They don't just think they're lucky, they think they're invincible. And invincibility is just another word for careless. The 6-month grace period was coming to an end. The first payment, $2,400, was due on October 1st. September 30th came and went. October 1st at midnight. Payment status, failed. I sat in my penthouse, looking at the failed alert on my tablet. I didn't feel happy. I felt a strange, quiet sense of completion. The math was finally adding up. I picked up the phone. Not the burner. My actual phone. Sarah, trigger section 14. File the transfer of title with the county clerk at 9 a.m. sharp. And book a locksmith for 2 p.m. You going there yourself, Maya? Sarah asked. I have to, I said, looking at a dusty old photo I'd kept in my desk. The only photo I had of me as a child, standing in the shadow of Ethan's trophy. The practice child needs to check on the masterpiece. There is a specific kind of silence that happens right before a storm. It's the silence of a debt that has finally matured. On October 2nd, the sun was shining on 42nd Oak Street, but for the people inside, the world was about to go dark. They thought they were safe. They thought they had outsmarted the system. But the system was standing on their front porch. I didn't wear a disguise this time. I wore a tailored midnight blue power suit and heels that sounded like gunshots on the pavement. I pulled my silver Mercedes into the driveway, the same driveway where my father used to park his old truck while telling me that maybe one day I'd earn enough to buy a used sedan. I didn't knock. I didn't have to. I had the legal transfer of title in my hand, and the locksmith was already standing by his van, waiting for my signal. I rang the doorbell. My mother opened it. She looked older. Gray hair, tired eyes, wearing the same faded cardigan I remembered from 10 years ago. When she saw me, she didn't recognize me at first. She saw a wealthy woman, a stranger. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice hovering between curiosity and fear. "Hello, Mom," I said. My voice was level. No anger, just fact. The blood drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. She clutched the door frame, her knuckles turning white. "Maya? Maya?" "Who is it, Elena?" My father's voice came from the living room. He walked into the foyer holding a newspaper. He stopped dead. The paper slipped from his fingers. "Maya, what? What are you doing here? Where have you been for 10 years?" "I've been working, Dad," I said, stepping past them into the house. It smelled the same, lavender and coffee. But underneath, there was the smell of rot. "I've been learning how to take care of myself. Since, as you put it, I was the practice child who could always figure it out. Maya, we tried to find you." My mother lied, her voice trembling. "No, you didn't," I said, turning to face them in the living room. "You were too busy funding Ethan's visions. Speaking of which, where is the masterpiece?" Right on cue, Ethan stumbled down the stairs, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He was wearing silk pajamas, probably bought with the loan money. "What's all the noise?" He stopped. He looked at me. Then he looked at the expensive briefcase on the coffee table. "You're the woman from the coffee shop. he whispered. The scarf, the glasses. Actually, Ethan, I said, I'm the owner of Second Chance Capital, and as of 9 a.m. this morning, I am the owner of this house. This is the moment every black sheep dreams of, not just winning, but showing the people who doubted you exactly how much better you became without them. Owner? My father roared, his face turning a dangerous shade of red. We have a loan. We have 6 months of grace. The grace period ended yesterday at midnight, Dad, I said, sliding the contract across the table. I pointed to section 14. You missed the first payment. Ethan, I assume you spent that $2,400 on those pajamas, or perhaps that fake watch you were wearing. Regardless, the absolute transfer clause has been triggered. I filed the paperwork at the county clerk's office this morning. This house no longer belongs to you. It belongs to my holding company. You can't do this, Ethan screamed, his golden child mask finally falling away to reveal the terrified, spoiled boy underneath. You're our sister. You're family. Family? I laughed. The sound felt like ice. Family is what you call the people you steal college funds from? Family is the word you use when you want a free ride on someone else's hard work? No, Ethan, we aren't family. We're just a borrower and a lender, and the lender is calling in the debt. My mother started to cry, the loud, performative sob she used to get her way. Maya, please, we have nowhere to go. We gave everything to Ethan's business. I know you did, I said. You gave him my future. You gave him your retirement. And he gave you… what? A pile of debt and a vision that never came true? I turned to the locksmith, who was standing at the door. Change the locks, now. Maya, stop! My father shouted. You're being cruel. You're being heartless. I'm being sturdy, Dad, I corrected him. Just like you wanted. I figured it out. I figured out that if I didn't own this house, the bank was going to take it and sell it to a developer who would have you out on the street by sunset. I'm actually being much kinder than the bank would be. So we can stay? My mother asked, hope flaring in her eyes. No, I said. You have 2 hours to pack what you can carry. I've already arranged a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. I've paid the first 3 months of rent. It's modest. It's what I could afford when I was 19 and you took my savings. Think of it as your practice apartment.